A very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to this Sunday's edition of Primetime News, coming to you live from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. I'm Arundhati Mudannaika. Let's start off with a look at the stories making headlines this evening.
News First Headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Car topples into the Mahaveli River in Kandy. One person dead. A change in symptoms from the Omicron COVID-19 variant.
සාමාන්‍ය සෞඛ්‍ය පුරුදු වලට යොමු වීම අත්‍යවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. මේ වෛරසය ඉන්න එක අපිට වැළැක්විය නොහැකි.
Israel bans foreigners from all countries. Heavy rains in several areas. People in 6 districts urged to remain cautious. Sluice gates of 26 reservoirs open. Minor floods around Dedra Oya and Maha Oya. Bread prices to increase from midnight. Cost of fast food including kuttu increased. 2 gas cylinder explosions reported today. Samples sent to determine quality of cylinders.
News First Headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
In Kandy last night, his body was recovered. Now the stories in detail. A man has died after a car toppled into the Mahaveli River in Kandy last night. His body was recovered today.
The body of a man who died after his vehicle toppled into the Mahaveli River was found today. The search operation was difficult as water levels of the Mahaveli River are rising because of heavy rains. This was during an extensive search by the Navy and the police life-saving unit. The deceased has been identified as Amila Ekanayaka, a 39-year-old resident of Haragamba in Kandy. How did the car topple into the river? Police say the driver had lost control of the car when travelling along the Kandy Gurudaniya road at around 10 last night. The car had then fallen into the Mahaveli River in Ilukmodara. Three people were in the car when it had fallen into the river. 2 of them had managed to save their lives and are currently being treated at the Kandy General Hospital.
2 people were admitted to the hospital at 2 or 3 this morning. They have been admitted to the number 18 surgical ward of the hospital. Their condition is not critical. They have undergone the necessary tests.
The 2 survivors recall the incident.
How the driving kare?
The survivors had told the police the car had toppled when they were returning after using an ATM machine. The car was pulled out of the river with the help of the army and the police. Tusita Halangude, a chief inspector at the Kandy police, said an investigation is being conducted into the incident.
The Sri Lanka Medical Association says Sri Lanka must be ready to tackle the Omicron variant of the COVID-19 virus. It says the entry of the variant can't be prevented. Israel became the first country to ban travellers from all countries after the new variant was detected.
The South African Medical Association has said the new Omicron variant of COVID-19 results in a mild disease. The association's chairwoman Angelique Coetzee said those infected do not suffer loss of taste or smell. She noted that the variant creates symptoms like sore muscles and tiredness and sometimes a slight cough. Angelique Coetzee added it would take 2 weeks to determine whether vaccinated people can contract the new strain of the virus. She said that although the new variant is highly transmissible, details currently available indicate that it is not serious. The Sri Lanka Medical Association says the country should be ready to tackle the variant as its entry cannot be prevented. There's a suspicion on the efficacy of the vaccines against the new variant. As the variant is spreading fast and has been detected in several countries, we are aware that its transmission rate is high. It's important to stick to the health guidelines to prevent us from contracting the virus. We must prepare for this by giving ourselves time to do this. We must remain extremely cautious about this. The facilities at hospitals must be strengthened. The people should take vaccines as well. As fear mounts over the Omicron variant, several countries are preparing for a state of emergency. What arrangements has Sri Lanka taken in this regard?
We have received the Health Ministry's guidelines on the variant that is spreading rapidly in South Africa. We have banned travellers from 6 African countries starting from midnight today. We will continue to conduct PCR tests for everyone arriving in the country. If the situation worsens, the Health Ministry will issue the relevant guidelines. Fully vaccinated travellers can head to their homes immediately from the airport. Cases of the Omicron variant have been identified in Australia, UK, Germany, Israel, Italy and the Czech Republic after it was identified in South Africa this week. Israel is to ban foreigners from entering the country for 2 weeks after it confirmed 1 case of the Omicron mutation and has 7 suspected cases. Australian health officials say they detected the Omicron coronavirus strain in the country today. This was detected in 2 fully vaccinated passengers who were tested after flying into Sydney from southern Africa. Netherlands has entered a partial lockdown. 61 people who arrived in the Netherlands from South Africa have tested positive for COVID-19. The World Health Organization says it will require about 2 weeks to identify the true nature of the new variant. Health experts say Sri Lanka must take more steps to prevent the Omicron variant from entering the country.
We need to act on the assumption that the worst possible outcome is possible. We should certainly stop all foreign arrivals of anyone who's been in Southern Africa, even the past month. For other arrivals from other parts of the world, I think it would be prudent, at least for the next 3 days, to require that they be quarantined for at least 3 days and with testing. When the Alpha variant came in and then when Delta came in, we did not have a sufficiently aggressive testing and genomic sequencing policy in place. We should have essentially got all the universities, all the labs that can do genomic sequencing. We should have put up a network. We need to have capacity to do 150,000 tests a day.
Health Minister Kehelia Rambukwella had recently tweeted that people above 20 years can obtain booster COVID-19 vaccines. This would be after completing the necessary period after the second dose. Army Commander General Shavendra Silva said this would apply for those above 20 years with prolonged illnesses or those who have undergone surgeries, including transplants. He added that they would be able to obtain the booster vaccine at walk-in vaccination centres. According to the Army Commander, a decision on providing booster vaccines for others above the age of 20 will be made in the future.
Rains are being experienced in several parts of the country. Diabe Siriwardana, the director at the Irrigation Department's Hydrology Unit, said people in 6 districts should remain cautious of heavy rains. These districts are Putlam, Kurunegala, Anuradhapura, Vavuniya, Mena and Badulla.
The Irrigation Department has said it will increase the levels of opening sluice gates into the Daduroya Reservoir if rain continues in the area. The department said there is a risk of floods in the low-lying areas of the Daduroya in the next 24 hours. This includes Variyapola, Nikavaratiya, Mahava, Koibagane, Bingiriya, Pallama, Chilau, Arachikattua and Rasnayakapura. 8 sluice gates of the Daduroya Reservoir have been kept open. 19,200 cubic feet of water is being released every second. Minor floods were reported in Giriulla, Nalla and Kotadeniyawa due to heavy rains.
ඊයේ සැරේ යට වෙච්ච වෙලාවේ වහලවත් අපි දැක්කේ නැහැ. මට කතා කරන්න බෑ. එච්චර වේදනයි. එච්චර මන්ත්‍රී ගොල්ලෝ ඇවිල්ලා කිව්වත් අපිට මේ වෙනකන් කිසිම දෙයක් කරලා නැහැ.
ඔය ගිය පාර යට වෙච්ච බඩු තාම ඒ වහල උඩ අස්කෙරුවෙත් නැහැ මොනවත් නැහැ.
වැස්සට පුදුම බයක්. දවස් දෙකක් හයියෙන් වැස්සොත් බඩු පැක් කරනවා.
ගෙදර තේද්දම ඉවරයි. ඉතින් කෙනෙක් ආවේ නැතුව බලන්න ඇත්තටම කියනවනේ.
Floods had receded in some areas.
අරගොල්ලෝ නම් ඉඩම් අතහැරලා මේ පල්ලිය ගෙදර කට්ටිය යන්නම ගියා. දැන් රාජ්‍ය බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවද දන්නේ නැහැ. මුකුත්ම නොකර ඉන්නේ අපි හිතලා අපේ ඉඩම් අතහැරලා පියයි කියලා.
සෝකෑවේ නැහැ. අපි හිතුවේ තුඩේ කන්න පාන් කෑල්ලක් හරි දෙයි කියලා. දැන් කියන්න කෙනෙක් නැහැ කාටවත්. ඡන්දේ කාලෙට නම් දස් 32ම විරිත්තගෙන එනවා. මේ සැරේ නම් රැවටෙන්නේ නැහැ අපි. ඡන්දකාරයින්ට නම්.
ජීවිත කාලෙම අපි හම්බ කරපු දේ ඔක්කොම ඉවරයි.
Several homes in Galakotwa in Pannala were submerged in floods after the Maoya had overflown. The Boyavalana area in Kudagammana along the Alavagiriulla main road was flooded after the Kudawaya had overflown. The movement of vehicles along the road was affected while several low-lying areas were inundated. Although there might not be floods, the water levels of rivers have increased. Therefore, it is dangerous to enter rivers. It is dangerous to bathe in them. The water levels of rivers can rise fast. Therefore, it would be better if people stay away from rivers these days. Ashraf Watta and Milanpura in Chilau have been flooded for the last 23 days. Water levels have not receded yet.
These people are suffering by the flood water, so they are saying they can't use this road.
යන්න විදිහක් නැහැ කෑම කන්න කිසිම ආධාරයක්වත් නැහැ අද වෙනතුරු ඇත්තටම කියනවා.
It's been nearly a month since concrete water in Karavitagara Chilau has been flooded.
මේ වෙනකොට අපි ඉන්නේ තාම ප්‍රජාශාලාවල අපිට ගෙවල් වලට යන්න බැහැ තාම.
Fishermen of Porutota, Palagature and Kammaltotapala have been unable to go to sea. Garbage flowing to the sea after water levels of the Maoya had increased has damaged boats. All the garbage is being washed here. Our boats are being damaged. There is a chance that fishermen might face accidents.
Roads in several areas were blocked after heavy showers were experienced across the country. The Alla Passara road was closed temporarily near the 16th mile post after a landslide caused a mound of earth to collapse. Meanwhile, the Kegol Avisawala road was closed temporarily near Balapattawa in Galigamua because of a landslide last night. Officers from the Road Development Authority and locals had taken steps to clear the road. The Colombo Kandy main road was closed off in Lower Kaduganawa because of heavy rains. It was reopened for vehicles at 6 this morning.
Now police have said to use alternative routes even though there is no risk in this area. They are said to reduce the vehicular movement of this area to use alternative routes.
The National Building Research Organisation took measures to restore the situation. Based on the data we gathered through a survey, the land has not become unstable even after heavy rains. We will conduct geotechnical exploration after drilling a hole into the ground. Meanwhile, several districts have been issued red alert warnings for landslides. This includes the Ududumbara Divisional Secretariat in the Kandy district and Deraniyagala, Dehiyobita, Mabanalla, Warakapula, Ruwanballa, Kegol, Galigamua, Yatiantota, Arunayaka, Bulatkuhupitiya and Ramukkana in the Kegol district. Red alert warnings were also issued for Mavatagama and Pulgahavila divisional secretariats in the Kurunagala district. Similar warnings have been issued for the Kalambu, Kalutara, Ratnapura, Nuwaralia and Mathale districts.
The Met Department's Natural Disaster Early Warning Centre warns there could be heavy thunder showers from 6 a.m. tomorrow. Thunder showers will be experienced at several places in the central, Sabaragamuwa, western, southern, northwestern and Uva provinces and in the Mana district. The Met Department notes that showers exceeding 100 millimeters could be experienced in several areas. Showers will occur in the northern and eastern provinces and in the Gaul, Matara and Kalutara districts in the morning.
Well, time for a short commercial break. Stay with News First. We will be right back.
Do your online shopping with Sambole.lk. home delivery and pickup now available.
Sambole.lk.
Welcome back. You are with News First. State Minister for Consumer Protection Lasantha Alagiwanna says gas cylinders have been obtained as samples from 15 areas. He said the samples have been sent to the Sri Lanka Standards Institute. This would be to identify whether the cylinders are up to the required standards. Meanwhile, multiple gas cylinder explosions were reported in the country today as well.
A gas explosion occurred at a house in Vattavidane, Kalmune today. The explosion took place at around 8:30 this morning. It had damaged the kitchen in the house. A gas cylinder exploded at a house in Kahatapitiya in Kegol this morning. I heard a sound when I left the kettle on the stove and went to use the washroom. I thought a bomb had exploded, but the gas cylinder had exploded. No one was injured in the incident. Some people engaged in religious rituals at the Sinigama Devalaya seeking God's protection from gas cylinder explosions. The rituals were led by Jagat Anand, the convener of the Democratic National Organization. They have reduced the quality. The composition was changed in April. It has been 6 months since they did that. The government has been unable to prepare safety standards for gas. That is why gas cylinder explosions are happening in many areas. We have obtained samples from the Kalutara, Ratnapura, Kurunagala, Gampaha, Gaul and Colombo districts. They have been sent to the Sri Lanka Standards Institute and the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation to conduct tests. If the government tests a few cylinders and says that there is no problem, can we accept that while explosions are occurring daily? If they don't take action, it will create the impression that they are targeting the lives of the people as they are similar to bombs. The negligence of consumers also has a main role in this. The electrical wiring hasn't been done properly. Most homes have electricity fuses fixed onto old clay sockets. They haven't designed it according to the latest technology. We have to examine whether they are selling old products to the people. I think we can't take this lightly. Houses are being damaged because of this. People are going to sleep at night not knowing whether the cylinders would have exploded or not. Therefore, the government must avoid making foolish statements. They have gone crazy. The State Minister of Consumer Protection is acting foolishly. We know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, those in power threw pots, supported tonics and did a lot of absurd things. This resulted in the deaths of many people. Those in power realized this only after some time. They are now silent while people are dying. Therefore, we wish to demand the government to inquire into this. Don't make the lives of the people as scapegoats to allow the companies of their henchmen to earn profits.
The death toll after a ferry capsized in the Kinya Lagoon this week has risen to 7. A 6-year-old girl breathed her last after fighting for her life 5 days after the tragedy.
6-year-old Rafiz Fatima was injured after a ferry capsized in the Kinya Lagoon on Tuesday. She was admitted to the Kinya hospital and then transferred to the Trincomalee General Hospital as her condition was critical. After fighting for her life for 5 days, last night Rafiz Fatima breathed her last, never to return again. The 6-year-old child, who was a student of grade 1, faced the tragedy on her way to school. Her death has left behind unbearable grief and sorrow.
She was on her way to school. I couldn't even see her in the end. She passed away last night. For 50 years, no one built a bridge. We asked everyone for help. No one looked into this. Why is this government doing this?
Rafi's Fatima's remains were buried today. Her death increases the death toll of the children from the Kenya tragedy up to 5. 2 elders also lost their lives. People in several areas are continuing to use dangerous methods of transport in Sri Lanka. Residents of areas like Batiklo, Mandur and Kurumangveli use a ferry daily with their lives at risk. They say they have no alternative but to use the ferry. People of Pankudaveli and Naripul in Batiklo were also seen crossing a river using a ferry today.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa says that women have been trapped into a microfinance debt crisis in the country. He says that proper solutions must be implemented to tackle this issue.
Leader of the opposition Sajid Premadasa expressed these views at an event of the Nagaren Nagarayata Gamin Gamata Dorin Dorata program held in Piliandala.
අද බොහෝ දෙනෙක් කතා නොකරන රට තුළ සැඟවුණු අර්බුදයක් තිබෙනවා. විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ සැඟවුණු අර්බුද
There is a crisis in the country prevailing at present that no one speaks of. Women have become the victims of this hidden crisis. It is the microfinance debt crisis in this country. This is a serious matter. Along with this crisis, violence against women also takes place. Women have fallen prey to some people. No one speaks of this. We are speaking on behalf of the thousands of women who keep silent most of the time. This is the story that they don't speak of. The Samag Jana Balawege will take measures to protect women and everyone who have become victims of the microfinance debt crisis. We will create an opportunity for everyone in this country to save themselves from this trap.
මර උගුලෙන් ගොඩ එන්නට අපි අවස්ථාව නිර්මාණය කරනවා.
Meanwhile, the National Movement for Victims of Microfinance staged a protest in Bandarawela today. They demanded the government to fulfill the promises in their election manifesto on cutting down their due payments.
The manifesto of Gotabaya Rajapaksa says that they will cut down on our microfinance payments. They had tabled a budget recently. It doesn't serve justice to this promise. We can't earn through paddy cultivations and tea estates. The livelihood of fishermen has also been affected. Daily wage labourers are affected. The cost of goods has increased. Gas cylinders are exploding at homes. How can women repay their loans if they are not receiving an income? Therefore, we are demanding the government to fulfill their promises. While the people are battered by the microfinance debt crisis, people are also impacted by the ever-rising cost of living. A loaf of bread is to go up by 10 rupees at midnight. The All Ceylon Bakery Owners Association says that this decision has been taken in line with the increased price of wheat flour.
Wheat flour has not been increased up to this rate in history. 18 rupees and 50 cents is a very high price. When you take a look at the price of flour these days, the price of bread must be at 100 rupees. From midnight today, the price of 450 grams of bread will be increased by 10 rupees. We have decided to sell a loaf of bread at 10 rupees more than the price we used to sell. Still, we have not decided on a price change in other items rather than bread.
The All Island Canteen Owners Association says that a decision will be taken to increase the price of short eats as well.
A packet of flour will be sold at 875 rupees. Everything from a biscuit to a kottu will be increased because of the increased price of flour. Therefore, we decided to increase the price of these goods within our restaurant system. We have also decided to increase the prices of rolls, vegetable rotis, egg rotis and paratha by 5 rupees. The price of a kottu will be increased by 10 rupees as well.
However, the National Movement for Consumer Rights Protection says that the government has not taken steps to protect the consumer.
Not only one faction. If the government intends to provide concessions to all the consumers, the price of all goods must be reduced. That has to be looked into. That is the sole purpose of the establishment of the Consumer Affairs Authority under the Act 9 of 2003. They are there to control the price of goods. There are laws for this. Without doing that, they are trying to bury the consumer underground.
The increase in the cost of bread is likely to affect people including the estate sector. This is because 2 out of 3 meals contain wheat flour.
Most of our meals contain wheat flour. We consume a lot of roti, string hoppers and pittu. Times are difficult for us.
The prices increase every day by the time we wake up. We don't have money to purchase groceries because they are expensive. 2 out of the 3 meals we consume daily has wheat flour. The shortage and the increase of wheat flour prices will heavily impact people in the central regions. People in the central region consume a lot of wheat flour. The people are desperate. This is a big problem for us. We didn't imagine the government will do this to us. While the cost of wheat flour and bread has increased, farmers say food production has also been affected. This is because of the lack of fertilizer. Farmers in Ridhigama in Ambalantota say they have been given locally manufactured liquid fertilizer under the name nano fertilizer. We got this document from an officer at the Department of Agriculture. The Agriculture Research Assistant summoned our president and handed over these cans. They haven't given us nano fertilizer, although they claim it is. How can we apply this on our cultivations? Farmers refuse to accept the fertilizer as no one has been willing to bear responsibility. The controller doesn't know this. He says this wasn't sent with his knowledge. They are trying to cheat us. News First inquired about this from the president of the Farmers Association.
The officer from the Agrarian Services Centre gave this to me. He said this was nano nitrogen.
Ocean Lust is Sri Lanka's first ever ocean-based e-magazine. They launched their printed edition in Colombo yesterday.
Ocean Lust is Sri Lanka's first ever ocean-based e-magazine launched in 2020. The first printed edition of the magazine was launched yesterday. Commander of Sri Lanka Navy Vice Admiral Nishantha Ulugethanna graced the event as the chief guest. The Ocean Lust magazine covers many topics including ocean plastics, the marine environment, fisheries and marine tourism. Professionals, industry journalists and photographers have contributed to the publication.
We Ocean Lust started off as a world-class e-magazine compiled as a powerful, well-versed knowledge hub dedicated entirely towards creating awareness about the ocean and sustainable conservation of it. We exclusively target the younger audience as they are going to be the bearers of our planet's future in no time. The magazine is entirely composed in the global language and thereby it has obtained a massive reader base both locally and internationally in a very little time.
And in sports news, we have news from the cricketing arena. Dinesh Chandimal says Sri Lanka can make one change to their team for the second test match against West Indies. The match will begin in Galle tomorrow.
Dushmantha was given a break during this game. Therefore, there can be a change in that position. Charit or a fast bowler can be brought into that position. The captain, coach and the selection committee has to make that decision. So one change is likely for tomorrow's game.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Time News. Thank you very much for joining us. For the News First team, I'm Arundhati Mudalnayaka together with our interpreter this evening, Brian Cruz. Good night.